YouTube, what's going on today? Sage here, aka the Golf Hacker, and this week I'm coming to you from the Mediterranean, from the sunny Spanish islands, Menorca. I'm here on Menorca, Beca, in the south of Menorca. The last week I've been here on holiday with my wife and some friends. Not too much golf played recently, so I don't have an episode of Scratch 22 for you this week, but instead I take you back to a conversation I had a couple of weeks ago with Gary Hermansson, my mental skills coach. He's a globally renowned sports psychologist. He's been to 4 Olympic and Paralympic events with Team New Zealand as the sports psychologist. I caught up with Gary a couple of weeks ago and we just started to discuss some of the basics of mental skills in golf. We didn't get into too much complexities around the subject, but I believe there are some takeaways in here that will be useful to any amateur golfer who's looking to knock a few shots off their handicap. I think for me personally, I think mental skills is one of those aspects which is probably overlooked by a lot of amateur golfers, and so I'm going to just cut straight into a conversation I had with him on Skype. The connectivity wasn't great, so we're going to cut straight into the middle of the conversation where we start to discuss the importance of mental skills in golf. We're going to cut straight into that conversation now. Hope you enjoy it. A lot of amateur golfers out there, perhaps think mental skills might be, just for the professionals. But I should imagine that there's a few things, very simple things that even amateur golfers could take with them onto the course, and with those in mind, actually see quite an improvement in how they score or how they play as they go around the course.
Just saying some things about golf. I mean, it is one of the sports which is very much psychologically driven. I mean, it's one of the reasons why people kept going back, that sort of intermittent reinforcement where you hit some terrible shots, but you get a couple of great ones, and that gives you a bit of an adrenaline boost and some dopamine kicks in, and you think, oh, I'll come back and improve on that. But at the competitive level, it's also, because it's so driven and saturated with outcomes, every shot you play, every stroke you make in sport, in golf, is very much oriented towards the outcome that's there. And probably in sport, as we'll get to discuss together much more, the single biggest challenge is the ability to have your brain and your body together in the moment, meeting whatever challenges are right in front of you. But golf drags you into that future, trying to control the future,
of course,
where the ball goes and putting it in the hole and making sure it doesn't go here or go there. And when you have a good first 9 and you think, oh, great, I'm on today, and then the second 9 suddenly becomes a disaster because you've focused on a great result that might come out of it. Or alternatively, the reverse of that can happen, as I'm sure well known, is that you have a shocker of the first 9 and you almost give up and you relax and you enjoy the second 9, and suddenly you have this great second half, which then you think, well, how come I didn't do that first part right as well? So it's a very mentally challenging game.
Yeah, no, it is. Sorry, I just thought I'd add that outcome orientated mindset. I think I experienced firsthand, the benefits of being less outcome orientated and just focusing on the moment, or not being so concerned about or having expectations about the result of your swing. The first round that I played and I filmed, an episode 1 of this series, I beat my personal best for a round at Cruise Hill by about 4 or 5 shots, and I think that came from a place of not wanting to set the standard too high for myself, right, for my first round, and without caring if I had a few out of bounds and added a few to the score sheet, because that would then lay the platform for a better round next time. Inadvertently, I've set myself a personal best and a very tough score to beat with my next full round. So
yes, indeed. And I mean that whole expectations of outcome is so critical. And you have your own expectations, but at the high performance level in particular, the national expectations are massive. And there are athletes who try and contrive to come in as underdogs, and you often find in sport that if you're the underdog, then in a way you've got nothing to lose, so you can just focus on doing the best you can. But suddenly you become the favorite, and everything you do is filtered through your brain in terms of where does that place me to do with meeting the outcomes. And when that happens, you have, instead of having 100% of your brain working with your body to perform and meet whatever challenges are there, you have 20% of your brain is trying to control the future. And so you reduce immediately, and not only do you reduce it, you create a interference between the brain and the body. And these are things that we'll get into a bit later, perhaps, when we're talking about the more detailed aspects of that functioning. But that's a piece of, in many ways, you can bring it down to that simple, unified challenge that sport, doesn't matter whether you're high performance or recreational, that's the challenge that you have to try and engage in and master.
Yeah, sure. Well, that's a good segue into I guess what I wanted to bring the discussion to, really. And I've got a list here of just a few sort of classic circumstances that a lot of amateur golfers probably find themselves in terms of challenges with mental skills. We've just been speaking about being outcome orientated in your mindset and what damage that can do. And a classic one, I think, for a lot of amateur golfers is referred to as the first tee yips, where you step up to the first tee, and being the first swing of the day, you're full of nerves. Often the first tee is sitting by the clubhouse, so you might even have a bit of a gallery nearby, keeping an eye on the tee, so there might be a few eyes watching. People tend to play some of their worst shots of the day
Yes.
on that shot right there. So could you give us a bit of an insight as to what's going on there?
Yeah, well, as you described it, it's the most intense probable outcome of all for recreational golfers in particular, because you've got an audience, and the focus goes on where you want the ball to go and where you don't want it to go. You don't want it to just be nipped off the tee and to run about a few meters ahead or something. And so instead of focusing, relaxing, breathing, giving some narrowed focus onto the shot, essentially in golf, it's what happens when you're at the point where you're wanting to strike the ball. Once the ball's been struck, then where it goes is out of your control. It's what you do with regard to the shot. And if you can give your attention to the swing and the connection, then it's more likely to go where you want. But also, I think the other part is that we often think that in that situation that this will define us. It's kind of like you don't want to be seen with a humiliation or embarrassment, so you're more preoccupied with the fear of that happening, because two of the most, the biggest fears we have as human beings is fear of being rejected and fear of being abandoned by people. And there's that sense in which if we do something terrible here, there'll be that humiliation and we'll be laughed at, and that becomes a piece of that as well. So it's putting in perspective and realizing that,
Right.
This doesn't define you. It's not life or death. It's the ability to relax. And there are some strategies like being able to breathe in a relaxed way, because often when you get scared, you tighten your breathing and that tightens your body. And in golf, you can't swing well and freely with that tension. So just being able to give some attention to relax, breathe a bit, and focus your attention on the task at hand rather than on where it wants to go. Obviously, if you do want it to go straight and long, but the main thing is you want to connect with it. And if you do it in a way which is relaxed, then you've got a better chance of it hitting straight down the fairway rather than going or whichever way it might cannon off if you don't do it well.
Of course. And I think a lot of amateur golfers as well, it's that whole expectation of wanting to hit it cleanly every time. But if you're not practicing day in, day out, then I think it's certainly golf of all games. It's you're expecting probably a bit much of yourself if you're hoping to flush it every shot of the day as you go around the course. But if you do happen to have a shocker off the first tee, if that carries through for the whole rest of the first hole, that can then sometimes carry through into the second hole, or a couple of bad shots. I think that sort of lands us in another area of interest as far as mental skills go, because I know personally if I have a couple of bad holes or a couple of bad shots, I find it hard to regain my focus or to try and bin what's happened behind me, and as you say, just focus on the task at hand. So what could you give us an insight as to sort of how you manage that, or what are some tools you can use to try and bin the bad shots and just focus on the next one?
It's the distinction between shots defining you as a golfer or as a person, or it being a learning experience. And there's quite a bit of tension now, and we'll look at this a bit more too, also around what's referred to as a growth mindset, a learning mindset. So if you have a bad shot, the attention needs to be on, okay, what do I learn from that, and then move forward with that piece of learning, rather than what typically happens is, there's a lot of self-judgment, a lot of self-criticism, and a lot of negativity of thought. And being able to manage the thoughts that you have and the attention you go to, and if you're able to have that ongoing learning mindset, then you have that space about every experience is a learning one. And you have, athletes and coaches always talk about learn from your mistakes, but they don't often live that. They tend to self-criticize a lot and judge, and we're very judging of ourselves. We judge other people a lot too. So learning how to be more non-judgmental and also to have a learning mindset. So with regard to a bad shot or a bad hole, it's past, and I mean, it's a cliche to say it's past, so I come back to it, but it's that ability to have a manner with regard to what that means that will shape your ability to move forward. And letting it go tends to be a little bit traps you into that business about defining. It's kind of, the way that's described is, what's a bad shot, don't let it get to you, as against, okay, that didn't work out where I want. What do I take from that? How did it go there? How did I make that mistake? It may be to do with relaxation or focus or just your swing or whatever. What is it that you take forward? And then you could just move forward. So it's a transition. It's not a let go and then come start again. It's a transition from that happened, what do I learn from it? What do I do? And how might that build from there, really?
Sure. So there's a bit of acceptance in there as well, not just trying to move past and forget about it. It's that acceptance element as well. Yeah.
Once you get into a judgmental cycle, then every little thing you do is going to be channeling you into a criticism or a judgment. And there's a lot of attention now about a concept, again, we'll look at, to do with being mindful, which is nothing more than be in the present. But the part about it, about mindfulness, which is important, is be in the present without judgment, because we are always judging ourselves, other people, judge the weather, judge the somebody else's gear or whatever. But if you're able to stay judgment free, then you begin to, it's much more of an in the moment experience. And basically that's what sport is about, is that being able to be in the moment, meet whatever challenges are right in front of you. But if you start bringing things in from the future, like outcome, or bringing things in from the past, like judgment and criticism, then you're already tainting what your mind is likely to be able to address at the time.
Yeah, sure. I guess, and another similar one I thought I'd just bring up there as well, as far as outcome orientated goes. Mentally blocking hazards is a big challenge as well. You step up onto a tee, and there's a big out of bounds down one hand of the right hand side of the fairway, let's say. And if you're a typical slicer of the ball, that's looking particularly ominous for a right-hander, because
if you get your normal slice, then you're very much likely looking to be headed out of bounds, and goes the same with maybe a bunker somewhere down the fairway as well. So these are the types of things that golfers are very aware of on the course. But at times, I should imagine a golfer would be far better off if they somehow just place that out of their mind somehow.
I think what's
the right approach there?
Yeah, the thing with hazards like bunkers in the rough and water hazards, whatever, is that when you're standing at the tee and looking down there and you see those and you have that immediate kind of tension, and often what happens that are sometimes conscious, sometimes subconscious, is that you then start thinking about what not to do. So just don't get in the bunker is a kind of a typical thing that might happen. And you might be aware of it consciously, but it will be there perhaps even subconsciously. And immediately the brain will take in, it's almost like you have to imagine it hitting in the bunker and what the consequences that will be, and then try and cancel it with a word like don't. But don't is quite abstract, and your brain has already almost rehearsed what it is that might happen. And so you've already set the brain into the outcome that you sort of subconsciously have challenged it to fulfill. And so from a deliberate point of view, it's right, where do I want this to be? So you might line up something down there, and the more you can be, without being so fearfully rigid, the more you can set your task to be able to just play it down the middle, or play it short if you have to from a bunker, or play it over the bunker if you need to give it a bit more. Then the task is what to do, what goal you want to achieve, rather than those goals that you don't want to achieve, because the brain, the abstraction of don't is much more vague. And so, as I say, when you think of it in a way, you've already rehearsed it, and then you have to try and deal with the rehearsal in that regard.
So it's focusing on the outcome that you do want so much that there's no space for the outcome that you don't want to be present.
It's setting the target in that regard. So I tend not to use the word outcome very much these days, because it almost sets you into that kind of notion of the consequences of outcomes. But if you think in terms of a target, which is a positive, deliberate attention, whether it's sort of some visual that you want, or some sense of that in the middle, down the middle piece, or if you're playing a shot which has some complications to it, then you're like, if you're near trees or something, often it's don't hit the branches as against right, play it low and with power. So you're always looking towards what you want to accomplish, and rather than going the other direction, which is trying to play the shot to avoid something which is problematic. So set your target, and then come back to having set the target, line it up, and then come back to focusing on the swing and the connection, because once that's done, then where it goes is now out of your hands. So you don't want to get too preoccupied with because often the risk is you then lift your head up to see where it goes, rather than keeping your head down to play through the shot and making a firmer connection, and you have a much better possibility of it going where you've targeted it to go by doing that.
Of course. No, that makes sense. And I think everyone knows the importance, and that just defines it for us clearly there as well, the importance of keeping your focus every time you do play a shot. And to be fair, I think that's another challenge in itself, because a round of 18 holes is comprised of many shots. Around the 70 mark if you're a very, very strong golfer, probably closer to the 100 mark if you're a golfer like myself, and maybe further if you've just begun, So the question then becomes sort of what are the tactics or the tools people can use to maintain a stronger focus through each shot? Is it I've heard the term sort of switching on, switching off. I know that is possibly what needs to happen, but how do you go about doing that?
Right. And as you say, I mean, we're playing golf both in terms of the number of shots and the holes, but also the duration. You know, it's a round. Obviously, even that's dependent upon people in front of you. You know, their pacing as well, and people you're playing with, what happens too. So it's important to realise that the focus is really segments of focusing during a game, and you need to have that ability to switch in and to be able to give intense focus when you're playing the shot. But typically a pre-shot routine is important because that begins to give your attention on the task. If you just stroll up to it and you know, set it up on the tee, or if you walk up to the ball, getting yourself into a focus which doesn't get over intense, but also doesn't get too casual either. And if you get that sequence of, right, choose club, right, now whatever you do in terms of, you know, stand behind the ball, look up, but then it's important also to have some sort of mental pre-shot routine, something in particular, and as we'll work at together, the importance of slow and deep breathing is really critical, because breathing is the connection between the brain and the body in terms of its psychological and physiological function. So that, for example, whenever we get scared, the first thing happens is our breathing tightens up, and so that interconnection is important. And being able to have the ability to use breathing as part of your pre-shot routine, and also, you know, depending on what you might decide to how you actually perform at the time, you know, because often, in a way, when you are playing a big shot, or even when you're putting, often it's kind of like almost like a holding breath thing. So having a pre-shot routine is important, and then in particular being able to include in that some mechanism for being able to clear the head or focus the head, or have some ability to bring the brain to the task is important. And the better you get at it, the more likely you'll be able to switch on, switch off. And so that awareness of being able to relax when you're walking down the fairway, and even sometimes when you're walking up to a putt, even have a smile and make sure your posture's right, and those things as well. All those contribute. The physical things and the mental things come together to bring you to the moment of being able to do the task at hand, including being able to concentrate on what you're doing rather than being distracted by other things around you.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I suppose sort of almost went full circle with that one there, and touched on a few of the tips we've already gone over. So it might be useful just to run back through those. So we talked about being in the present and not being so outcome orientated, losing the expectation of yourself and just focusing on the process. We spoke about not being so judgmental of yourself, letting go of the judgment. So, you know, not letting bad shots define you, and recognizing perhaps, you know, there's an opportunity to learn from a bad shot, and take that learning into your next one to make it better. Setting yourself a target, and making sure that you're focused on the shot that you do want to play. So not allowing any headspace for perhaps the shot that you don't want to play. And as you said just now, giving yourself a bit of headspace from time to time just to breathe, and not letting go of complete focus on every shot, and each and every shot as it comes, waiting until the right time to really switch that focus on, taking some time just to breathe, enjoy yourself, take it all in. So I
think the other thing, you've captured those very well. The other thing that I'd like to add in there is that it's I mean, the cliche is control the controllables, but one of the important things you can control is your mindset in that regard. So, for example, let me give you an example for myself in terms of me. Sure. Even here now, is that, you know, I have a desire to meet expectations, yours about what you want me to do, and also here expectations about being able to talk through in a way which is helpful and meaningful. And so to do that, it's also useful to have some trigger thoughts and trigger words which push you in that direction. So 3 that I typically use for myself, and they're pretty much ingrained now, is confident, strong, and joy. So I want to be confident in whatever I am doing at the time. Here, I want to be confident in what I bring to the discussion, and as we work our way through, I want to be strong in my delivery. I want to make sure it's clear and tight. But then I also want to enjoy the challenge. That's why I'm in this field. That's what I like to do. That's why I enjoy sport as well. And so if you can identify something of those sort, and there are a whole range of possibilities, relax, breathe, whatever, they become terms that you might build into your pre-shot routine, which is a way of triggering your brain in controllable directions around a mindset, rather than getting caught into uncontrollable things about, don't do this, don't do that, what if I fail here, and things of that sort. So that's a piece which almost captures all those elements as well, having a bit of a mindset routine, and we'll look at that in more detail together.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think we're starting to scratch the surface there of what's known in the golfing world as swing thoughts, and everyone needs some of those. And I don't think it's something that I've really captured in my personal game to date. So perhaps we can pick that discussion up down the line.
Sure.
I thought just briefly looking back across what we've covered on today, Gary, those are all, or they feel to me like they're fairly straightforward aspects to employ within a game. I mean, as you advance in mental skills, let's say with one of your elite athletes, how do these principles, or how do these tools and tricks sort of transform and advance?
Right. Well, what's happening in sports psychology, and these flow into the mental skills, I mean, the difference between the two is that mental skills is much more driven around the business to do with performance strategies, and there's a bit of a flow back into that whole well-being piece as well. So that if, for example, during the journey you find yourself in a bit of a trough, or you have that kind of ongoing frustration or despair or whatever, then we could well be looking at some of that as well, that interface between your well-being space, so that clearly it's self-evident that if you bring yourself in a space which is more at ease and excited about the challenge, rather than being despairing of the thing you put, humiliated if things aren't going well or whatever. So that's an area which we may or may not engage with in that way. But what's happening in the sports psychology mental skills area now is a greater understanding of the way the brain functions under pressure, and we'll together, as we progress sequentially, we'll gradually get to the point where we look at what is it that's actually happening in terms of you as an individual, and what's happening in your brain when you're putting it to the test of pressures and challenges in a social context. I mean, we are tribal beings, we are social beings as well, and it's not just you in a total confined abstract space that you're doing it in. You're doing it in the context of a collective, and so how the brain functions to protect you from criticism, from disappointment, from failure, is important in that regard. So what we will look at together as we progress is the dynamics of the brain and the body, and how they work together when the pressure is on, and how you manage to be able to control the triggers that might come into play, which will interfere with your performance in that regard. And so there's that whole, I have a particular mind management model that I work with around what you think governs what you feel or what you do. And if we unpackage that some more, then we start targeting your thoughts, knowing that that'll have an effect on your emotions and behaviors. But your thinking is governed also by parts of your brain too. So we'll look at that as we progress, probably. And some of that will be of relevance to recreational golfers as well, because it won't be done in a complicated way. We'll try and simplify it, but it will have some ability to help people think, So that's what sits behind the struggles that I might have, or the barriers that I've arrived at, or the plateaus that I got to, but I can't seem to advance any further from there. So that's a bit of a looking ahead to the future in terms of our time together.
Sure. In the meantime, I'll just have to do my very best to ignore the gallery that sits up behind the first tee at Cruise Hill.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't let them define you. Just being able to go there and relax, and enjoy it, and have a smile on your face. You know, I mean, what's the worst that could happen? You might duff it, you might get laughed at, but if you can live with that, then it becomes almost irrelevant. So go for that.
Yeah, good insight there, Gary. Hey, look, I think that's a good start for us. I've already got a few bits and pieces to take away with me to my next round. I'm sure there'll be plenty of people out there that have taken something away from that as well. So, Gary, thanks very much for your time today, and look forward to catching up again soon, perhaps with a few more challenges being thrown my way by the golf course.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, and quite excited to be involved in your aspirations, and it'll be kind of fun along the way. So we'll meet up at various points and monitor where it's going, reflect on it, and see if we can keep you in the right place.
Good one. It's a real privilege to have you on board, Gary. Thanks again.
Thanks, Mike.
So guys, while I am here in Menorca, it's not a complete break. I've been off to the driving range once or twice, and I've got my game next week against Ben, scratch golfer who belongs to Cruise Hill Golf Club. So I've got that coming up. So certainly haven't completely switched off. But if you have any other questions for Gary around mental skills and golf, please send them through. Just drop them in here down below in the comments section, or you can reach me on my blog, thegolfhackr.com. Let me know if you have any questions around the mental side of golf and how you can improve your golf, improve your scores through mental skills application. Drop them in down below. Until then, that's it. Take it easy. See you next time.